16 years old and excited to carry on the legacy of an ultra legend. It's Nal Jure Robič, and his name says it all. Nal's father, the late Jure Robič, was the 5-time RAAM champion and 24-hour world record holder amongst his many other achievements, and his life and legacy continues to inspire all of us as ultra cyclists. On today's episode, we have the honor of speaking with Nal about his already 8 years of cycling experience on the road and on the dirt, and his future plans and ambitions for ultra cycling. We'll be joined by another ultra cycling legend from Slovenia, the one and only Marko Baloh, an elite ultra racer, RAAM veteran, world record holder, coach, and previous guest on this show, who will be sharing his wisdom and experience as a mentor for Nal and all of us. I'm your host, Justin Tu. Let's roll. Hey Ultra family, Justin Tu here, your host of the Ultra Cycling Show. Thanks for tuning in to today's very special episode with 16-year-old Nal Jure Robič. And also, we have a special guest, Marko Baloh, longtime ultra racer and RAAM veteran. Thank you both for joining us on the show today.
Hello, no problem. Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you.
Marko, great to see you. Doing well? I did want to point out before we get into everything that for those watching, they may think, Nal Jure Robič, that sounds familiar. And it is, because you are actually Jure Robič's son. And of course, he is an ultra legend and also a 5-time Race Across America champion. And he held that title for many years. And so it's very cool that you have your father's name as part of your own. That's just a great way to keep him very close, I suppose. Well, thank you both, and especially for you, Marko, for being with us here on the show. What I thought is that it would be really cool to have you, of course, as a veteran in the ultra cycling scene. You've been a road racer. That's how you began your career. You were the Slovenian national champion, in fact. And of course, you've competed in the Race Across America on 10 occasions. You hold a variety of world records as well. You are also a coach, and you have a coaching business for those who might be interested in having a coach to compete in something like the Race Across America, or perhaps the race around Austria, or any of the other ultra races in the world. And so I thought it'd be really cool to see what your thoughts are for Nal, because Nal, you are actually interested. You're not currently an ultra racer, but you do ride enduro. You've also done mountain biking, and also you have done some road racing as well, right?
Yeah, that's correct. But there have been some complications for school, and that's why I quitted. I quitted mountain biking, committed to road cycling. Then again, I changed my mind again, and then it's mountain biking. I still have a lot of time. I'm already 16 years old, and I still have a lot of I have to overcome a lot of accomplishments, and I still have a lot of time before I get into extreme my father's steps. That's a long journey.
Yes, very true. And Marko, before we pick your brain and get all the golden nuggets for Nal to benefit from, so he could plan out his long journey to all that extreme racing, I'm really glad that you're doing well. You're sitting here with us today. I know you had a recent accident, but it looks like you're doing pretty well. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, first, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for getting us together with Nal, because I haven't seen him for a few years, and I wouldn't recognize him on the street. He's changed a lot in 2 years. I don't know, 3 years maybe, when we saw each other. Otherwise, yeah, I had a car drove me off the road. Actually, I think it was on purpose. I don't know. It was just a bad situation. I was lucky that the police car was close by behind him, so they stopped him. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, I'm glad to hear that Nal's doing okay. It's actually perfect that he does all of those things. Doesn't matter if it's mountain biking, road biking, even track, but not in and unfortunately we don't have a lot of track. That would be a perfect start for training for a young guy. So the more different stuff you do, the better off you are later when you go for ultra. Otherwise, it's as much as you can do normal racing, get stronger. If you start with ultras so young, you just don't develop your speed and your strength. It's different. If you just want to prepare for finishing RAAM, that you can start whenever you want, and that's just a mental thing, And if you want it, everybody who wants it can do it. But if you want to race it and race fast, that's a different ballgame.
Yeah, that's a great overview, I would say, Marko. And I would love to dive into more detail to dissect exactly what that means and how that looks for Nal and others who are watching, including Adam Ashwell. But before we do, I wanted to show some of these wonderful photos that Nal sent through, including a couple that I added as well. Of course, for those who don't know, we do have an episode with Matjaž Planinšek, who was Jure's crew chief in his final Race Across America, but also a crew member through all of his races here in America. This is Jure, the legend of ultra cycling. And this is Jure with, here on the left side of the screen, Nal. And so, Nal, you were probably, about 7 years old here?
Six
6 years old? Wow, and you're 16 now. So this was 10 years ago. That's amazing.
Time flies, yes.
And so, of course, the late Jure Robič, he was involved in a bicycle accident, and that was 10 years ago. So around the same time as this photo, then I would imagine.
Yeah, I think I've watched your episode with Matjaž, and he said it was about 10 days or 14 days before the accident that this photo was taken. I think we were at his place. Yeah.
I see. And here's a very sweet photo. So you remember all those good memories. It looks like your father is doing a workout as part of his RAAM training here, doing some leg presses with you.
Yeah. Well, this was I think this was evening routine. Every time I came at his place, I wanted to do this this acrobatic stuff. Have a little fun.
Yeah, so you got to practice your acrobatics, and your father got a nice leg workout in, I'm sure, after biking for many hours on end that day. And then, of course,
he didn't have any problems with it.
Yeah, I bet. And then, of course, after all that working out, you have to fuel up your body. So looks like you're having something good there. Of course, the last stage, right, Marko, as part of a good training routine is your rest and recovery. So I see Jure and Nal doing that very well here. And so it's good to see that your father did rest on occasion.
Yeah, he did, but he was also, he was on the bike a lot. He was doing trainings pretty much from the morning and, 8-hour rides. He was home at about, 7. He was home at evening, but, at the end of the day, he would still, take his time for me, to have some fun, take me out, on a ride or, play with me. He was home, usually he was training, but he still gathered the rest of his energy, to make me happy and, play with me, things like that. He did a good job.
Wow, that's excellent. Nobody's forcing you to say that. So the fact that you're even saying that yourself really says a lot about your father. And it's great to hear that such a legend in the sport, so dedicated to the sport and training and racing and, the world's best at the time, that he was also a great father and made all that time for you. Because I'm sure not only was he busy training, but also very tired after all his training. And so that's great to hear. And of course, he has left an impression on you, and it looks like it runs in the family. But there's many great photos here of you yourself here in the mountains nearby where you live in Slovenia. Very nice bikes as well. And of course, you have been busy, as you've mentioned, and as Marko has touched on. You've done a lot of mountain biking through the years. You've also done road racing also. And more recently, enduro racing. And
That's
so I'd
correct.
imagine it looks like you have friends that you do it with as well. Tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
that now.
this is my friend Drecinko Pogačnik. He's I think he's a great guy. I think we met. He was also racing cross country in the local club. So basically we met there, but then he quit it. I mean, I quit it, and then we had this 5 year, 4 year. We didn't see each other. Then one day, he calls me. I was still living in Jesenice, not in Koroška Bila. One day he calls me, hey man, come to the Ukova. Ukova, we call it. It's a local. We have a pool. There's a large pool with a big cliff. You have 4 bridges you can jump off. It's the highest one is 10 meters. So that's when we started, hanging out again. And then basically it all went from there. From that point on, I was still road cycling, but then I decided, it just wasn't for me. I didn't at that point in my life, I didn't see myself, being a successful road racer. So I basically, I was growing up. My bike was too small for me to ride. I am currently 168 centimeters tall. I had a bike size M. So I sold it. The rest of the money, I gathered some money, incurred the one from the sold bike, bought an enduro bike. And he was a big, he taught me a lot of things, how to fix your bike, how to ride. So he's a great friend. But in this picture you were showing, he has a downhill bike. It's not enduro. He's not racing enduro. He's not in the same club as me. He's in Kran. As you can see, he has a downhill bike, bigger forks, bigger suspension. So this was a picture taken, this summer. I think it was the last summer days we were riding. I think this picture was taken in September, not even in the summer. So yeah, this is the park I was telling you we have built, and the good times we have.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. No, thanks for explaining that. And of course, we were looking before the show here on the map for those who don't know. So I'm sitting over here in California in the US. Now, Slovenia is over here. I'm quite familiar now because we've had multiple Slovenians on the show. And it's just below Austria, right over here. So 2 bordering countries with some of the best ultra cyclists in history and currently, amazingly. Of course, we mentioned Christoph Strasser, and he's from Austria. And now Marko and you, Nal, are here in Slovenia. And so it's a beautiful country. Also, there's some coastline down here. But you are here in the northern end. If we zoom in here, let's see. We go up. Oh,
Basically,
I know
you
why.
can
Because
say
here,
we are living in the Alps.
right.
In the mountains, not in the mountains, but in the valley.
Right. And so just around in this area somewhere here, if I remember.
Yeah, now you see it. It's on the left upper corner.
Right. And so, of course, there are a lot of mountains here, as we could see on this map. And so many trails, I'd imagine, that you'd be riding in. So that's really cool. And it's also great to hear that you have done all this riding. And since you were 8 years old, of course, you're 16 now, so you've had a lot of experience already. And as Marko was explaining, that is all perfect for you to be doing at this stage. So it sounds like you are on course to be successful in whatever success means to you. And so before we loop Marko back in here to get more tips for your journey through cycling, tell folks the difference between downhill riding, mountain biking, and what you prefer these days, which is enduro.
Well, actually, mountain biking is actually, it has 3 main disciplines, downhill, enduro, and cross country. I did cross country myself, then I quit it, went road racing. Now I quit road racing, back to enduro. Cross country is basically, it's a rigid bike. It only has suspension in the front. Usually it's carbon bikes because, the lighter the bike, the better performance it shows when you're riding, when you're racing. It's also a timed race. Enduro is the same thing, but you have suspension also in the back, so it's a full suspension bike. Also time trial, usually there are stages. Downhill racing is just, you go up with a lift or a zip line, something like that. You can push your bike to the top. Usually they use lifts. And then it's a longer descent, also time and more technical. The downhill bike has bigger suspension, more air, and it's just gotta be stiff, so it takes everything you throw at it, so it can perform well when you're racing.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for that great explanation. Now, Marko, coming back to you, you were a road racer, UCI road racer from 1985 to 95, so that was 10 years. How old were you when you started that cycling career?
Old. I mean, also cycling, 18 years old. 18 years old. Huh. Actually, I did it for longer, until 2003 was my last Tour de Slovenia, the semi-professional. But I was probably 95 was, I said that year because that was the year that I got the job. So I wasn't semi-professional anymore. I just worked, and I did a couple of races here and there.
So you started, Marko, road racing when you were 18 years old, so just 2 years older than Nal is now. And it looks like when you were doing your first race across America in 2003, so that was, I guess, about 18 years later than that. So were you about 36 years old then when you did your first race across America?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But when was your first ultra event?
Yeah, 2000. That was, with Jure, we were racing just 1 year in the same team, but we knew each other, so we're not exactly in the same place, but we did a couple of training every year. We did, I don't know, 2-3 times we got together, and we did really really fast. There was never slow riding with Jure. Anyways, then we kind of started dreaming, everybody on his own. I don't know. I know for myself, I saw this documentary from the first Austrian who won it, Spielauer. It was 93, 94, something like that. I saw it the same year or maybe next year. And then you kind of think I was always good time trialist, and the races, the longer, the better I was. So I was kind of thinking about it. And I guess Jure the same. And later in 99 or 2000, I guess, 2000, there was the first Slovenian guy. Neither of us not a bike rider, and anyways, he came from running. Freddy Virak, he was the first one who managed to do it, because we were kind of always dreaming, but you could never do it because it was in the middle of racing season, and it costs a lot, as you know yourself. So, but Freddy was the one who showed us that it's possible, to raise the money. That's first, and it's possible for Slovenian guy to actually make it to the start line, and actually he was also the first finisher. He did it in 2001. 2000 was his first one, DNF, and then 2001 he finished. And then I got together with him. Slovenia is small, so you can even before internet, before Facebook, you could just find a phone, and I called him, and so we talked, and I did the qualification for in 2000, which was at that time not the same as now, because nowadays you have races all over the world, but that time there was no race in Europe in which you could qualify, but you had to do your 24 hours loop, and you had to get officials from UMCA, UMCA, and the minimum was at that time 425 miles, which is around 650 kilometers or something. So I did that, and at the same time, it was more fun to go for the Slovenian record, which was also my goal. The first guy who had this record was actually the first professional, really famous Slovenian guy, Primož Čirin. Now he has the bike shop, and he also comments from time to time, and he works somewhat with Roglič also. But he was, I don't know, I think with one mega triathlon or something, he set this record around 720 kilometers. So that was my goal, and together with the qualification. So in 2000, I did this qualification, and that means, as you probably know, 3 years you have time to raise the money, and so there was it just took ages. And Jure got his qualification the next year, 2001. again setting not this time not only Slovenian but also the world record at the time for 24 hours. And that's and then in 2006 somehow we did it everyone for himself. You cannot do it as a team or something. Yeah, you could, but we just wanted to do it solo. So in 2003 we were both ready, and I guess we were ready before, but no money before.
Yeah,
in 2003 we managed to raise the money, and Freddy was also doing it. So that year there was 3 Slovenian guys solo in RAAM, which was
impressive.
One and only time that was kind of nice.
So you qualified in 2000. So at that point, then I guess you were 33 years old, and then you raced your first in 2003. How many Race Across Americas did you end up racing with Jure?
Yeah, not because for me it was a little bit complicated. First time was a big medical issue. I had to DNF. Didn't finish because of blood clot in my lungs, and that took time. They operated the next spring, and so next year I couldn't do it even if I wanted to. Some guys, or maybe most of the people, didn't believe that I'm coming back anyways. I did. I wanted to go. So that's the first one I missed. 2004 to 2005 was our second together. Then there was no money. Oh no, sorry, 6 was my first one that I finished actually. Then 7 there was no money. 8 we did it together again. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. But in 8 I did it in 2-person team. Again, it was easier to raise the money, so I did it with a friend. 2009, that was our 5. We did 5 together. In 2010 again, I couldn't raise the money, so. And then the next time I did it was 11, 11, 13, 16, 17, 19, something like that. So 5 together with Jure. And he won just not the first one, but yeah.
Very special.
Just the first one he didn't win, yeah. And 2009, and that, let's not get into that, but he was there was a guy who was stronger at that time, whatever, but unfortunately he didn't finish, which was more his crew decision. You know how your brain works. The last day of RAAM, and let's not go into there. But he did win 5. We did 5 together. The first one he didn't win, but he was close. When he decided he wanted to race the last day or two, he was just passing Kish, I think, said that he just couldn't believe how fast he was. He passed him, 200 kilometers before the finish or something.
Oh, that's
so
insane.
He finished second. Alan Larson. Alan Larson was the last American winner, of RAAM, and he was really that year. He was really strong. So and then after that it was yours. When he finished, he won.
Yeah, that's a really cool history. Thanks for recapping that with us. I'm sure even Nal is glad to hear some of that action unfolding. And it's so amazing that you were able to race 5 times with Jure in, not only the world's toughest ultra race, but also especially because, as Slovenians, being able to represent your country together. And so that's really cool to learn about. Of course, Jure Robič was also on the Slovenian national cycling team. If I remember correctly, it was from 1988 to 1994. And so both of you have had that experience. Now, before I jump into more of my own questions, I'm wondering what questions might you have for Marko yourself, whether it relates to your father or just training in general or ultra cycling?
Well, me and Marko know each other, our families, and basically we know each other very good. I would like to ask Marko one question. Just going into the RAAM, before the race, what are you thinking of? I suppose you're not panicking and you try to be you try to be cool and calm, but what goes through your head, 1 hour before the race starts? What goes through your head?
It's funny. I don't know. I guess the first time is the time that you kind of you do panically unpanic. You're very nervous. I mean, always you're nervous, but the first time is, everything is new. If especially for us, with Euro, we started with North Slovenia has done it. I mean, at least in our team, all were rookies. So it's kind of nowadays different. You kind of try to get 1, 2, 3 persons who already did it. At least in a crew, and that helps a lot. At that time, it's otherwise. I think an hour before the start, let's say half an hour before the start, it's really cool. That's probably the best the best time because everything is prepared. In the last days you don't have to do nothing much. You just ride a little bit and rest and eat and try to chill out as much as you can.
Yeah. And so I have this photo for people to see. This is the starting line. Now, I was trying to find a photo of you, Marko. I couldn't find it very quickly, but I do see a comment that you made here. So I guess I did find you. And so the calm before the storm is what you commented here on this photo. And I wanted to point out, so at the starting line, as Nal was asking, how you feel as you're leading up to that, it is a cool feeling because after everything is said and you're ready and you're waiting, it's this whole lineup. You can't really tell in this photo, but behind Christoph and his one support vehicle there is a whole lineup of racers and cars. So it's a pretty cool feeling as you line up there with all of these other ultra racers getting ready to embark on this 3,000-mile journey. Of course, there's all these spectators cheering on. Of course, they're announcing over the loudspeakers as each racer comes up to the starting line. So it is a really cool moment. And I remember lining up at the start there, Marko, I'm sure you can relate, and just feeling this sense of focus and just exhilaration to get started. I mean, I want you to talk a little bit about even getting to the starting line and what that means for Nal, not just in, say, 1 year, but because Nal may have many years ahead of him before he's able to get to the starting line of the Race Across America. Tell us about some of the challenges just to get there and what it means to even be there at the start.
Yeah, that's probably why the feeling on the start line is so good, because it's not 2 months that you prepare for this. It's not 1 year. You actually, everybody has at least a couple of years, of preparing for it, and then when you first, like I said, nowadays it's a little bit easier. You have to do the qualification, then the qualification standard upholds for 3 years, because obviously the organizers know how hard it is to raise the budget. So they give you 3 years, and in that time you just work. The physical, like I said, the physical part, just training is not that as hard as it. Raising the money, number one probably for most of people, and getting the right crew. That's, I guess, even more important. No money can bring you to the finish line, but the crew, without the crew, you cannot do it. No way. And it's really paramount to have the good crew, and it's kind of a learning process. The first time, for Nal, it will be a little bit easier. He has Matjaž. If I have time, probably I would be interested.
It's a good point that you make. It is important, but Nal, you're right. Having Matjaž there with all his experience and enthusiasm for the race, I'm sure you'll be in good hands. But now coming back to today, and even, through the journey of getting there, if that's something, Nal, that you want to do at some point in your life, I'd like to know, and what questions you might have for Marko as it relates to training and where you are today. What kind of training should you be doing, perhaps? What should that look like through the years leading up to it? And even from 1 year to the next, in terms of perhaps distance or speed, how should you be progressing? What questions might you have specifically around training for Marko?
Well, for that type of extreme racing, ultra racing, from all the books I've read, from all the people I've talked, I've heard lots of things, of course I'm too young, but still, when you're training, you can go, you can just, decide, okay, I'm gonna go for 24-hour ride, and I'm gonna ride as hard as I can, because you have to prepare, you have to take it notch, you have to take it step by step. So if I would like to ask a question, what is the how do you the best way to progress, from if you look from from I don't know how you say it in Slovenian. From if you look it up from from my standpoint, from every normal person, that does road cycling or cycling, what is the best way, to do it step by step for the training, all the all the miles, the hours, how to prepare for all the night rides, things like that.
And Marco, before you answer, great question, Nal. Give us a context. What's the kind of riding that you do for your training currently? Like, what's the longest distance that you might do currently?
Well, doing enduro, it's not that it's not that long distances, you do in road cycling. I think the record I have for the longest ride I did was about 350 kilometers in one day. It's maximum, but we started our training in like 7-8 a.m. in the morning, and then we came back 7-8 p.m. in the evening. The enduro trainings are not like that. Basically what you do, our trainer, Primož Ravnik Figaro, he's a very good guy. He basically sends you a message, one day prior to the training. Training is training is in 5 or 4 p.m. We go. He sends you a location where we meet, and then we go for a 3-hour training. Up climb. And then it's basically more focused on the downhill, because uphill, or basically you have to train yourself for the uphill, and for the downhill, he comes in, tells you and shows you how to ride, the specific parts. I don't know, basically enduro racing is you're racing blind. There's no preview on the race. Some races are like that, that you can ride you can ride the trail or the race, the route, you can ride it prior when you're racing. But usually enduro races are blind. You cannot see the track before the race. So basically we are training blind racing. He knows trails. He knows, I would say we know 10%. We know 10% of the trails. He knows 90, and that's he's a very good trainer.
That's really cool. Okay, so to summarize that, so you have actually done a very long ride before, 350 kilometers. That's over 200 miles. That's really impressive, Nal. Geez. But I guess in the context of being your father's son, I guess that doesn't seem like a very long distance to you. But so you are also doing training rides, which are several hours, even 3 hours. So you are doing some pretty serious training as it is, and you're also doing a lot of technical stuff, going both up and down different trails. So that's a great context. Now, Marco, would love to hear from you. Nal's question was, how can he progress from where he is, and what should that look like between now and, you were 33 years old when you did your first RAAM qualification, and perhaps maybe you could have even done it sooner if you went back. So what would that look like at a high level for Nal? What would your suggestion be?
I would say you just have to try to enjoy the long rides, and we didn't, when we raced, those normal UCI races. I'll try not to lie, but I don't think we ever did training longer than 240 kilometers. That was probably tops. And that was probably me and Jure, because we already overdid it a little bit, so maybe add a little bit. But that's the long, and that's the long trainings which we did a couple of times a year, mostly in the base period, the long rides, and then a couple of times a month, I guess. So just say, try to enjoy it. There's nothing. I mean, if you did, I'm impressed. 300 kilometers, 350. That's a lot for a junior, for such a young guy. So I don't think you need more. If later when you're in ultra cycling nowadays, I actually never train 24 hours anymore, because it just takes too much out of you. So I just do those long trainings as in the race when the races are on, not this year. So I would say up to what you did, 12 hours. So 10 to 12 hours is tops what I do now. But of course, when you're starting, you try it, you do 24. before our first RAAM, I did 48 hours around Slovenia. Actually, the first time it was 50, I wasn't fast enough. And the second time it was 48. But so you do to play with it, because you have, as you said, you have to try the night riding, and you have to see how your body reacts after, you know, such a long ride. But as I said, I would wait with that for at least when you're of age, so 18, 20 maybe. It's always easier to do it in a group, you know, and you kind of push each other, because if you're alone after 200, kind of
you're tired.
if you come close to home, Slovenia is not that big. I mean, you can go around or something, but if you're close to home and after 200, even me, sometimes I'm not sure if I want to go another loop. So yeah, just try to enjoy it. Try to find somebody who wants to do it with you. Tell me, I'll go with you if I'm at home, or somebody, you know, so some of your friends, you know. I'm guessing there'll be other guys, you know, interested, because it's a challenge. Or maybe if you set a challenge, you know, the really popular the last years is Diagonala, how do you call it, you know, cross Slovenia from east to west.
Yeah.
So people do it regularly. It used to be with Jure, I think we did it once or twice. So if you can do, you have to.
And how long is that distance, Marko?
It's 200 miles, 210 miles, right? Something like that.
Wow. Geez, that would be.
There's still an official UMCA record now with Buka. I did it in 2007. I think.
So for that kind of distance, Marko, for about 200 miles, do you think Nal, at his age now, is old enough to try to set, for example, an under 18 record for that east to west of Slovenia?
I wouldn't say. I don't think it's important now to set the challenge, like, you know, set a record. Just go do it. Try to enjoy it. Find the day that's sunny, maybe with tailwind. that one's nice, because from east to west of Slovenia, it's kind of, people say it's downhill because, you know, it's probably at 300 meters where you start at zero at the seaside, you finish, but there's a lot of climbing. There's probably 6,000 feet, so 2,000 meters of climbing, or 2.5. It's a nice one, you know. You actually do it almost every year with a group of friends. So we find some people, one or two, depends how many we are, to drive the vans. So they drive us to the start line. We start very early, because not everybody's so fast. So we start 3-4 a.m. So we have to start with the lights. And then it's for the fast guys, it's 10-11 hours, I would guess, and for the slower, maybe 1 hour, 2 hours slower.
That's pretty cool. I have the ride with GPS here. Marko, where does that route start about? Here I'm looking at
you see Morska Sobota, you know, on the east. When you see, if you look at Slovenia, it's kind of like a chicken. Can you see it? Or
up here, yeah.
We see Morska Sobota.
Yeah, so somewhere here.
And Lenti, so there's on the border with Hungary, and it goes through Maribor, Ljubljana, and it ends at the seaside, Koper. Or usually we do it in.
And that is where another racer that we had, Stanko Verstošek, he just set that 24-hour road record.
Yes,
he lives over here.
Yeah.
Now I try to click here, but I guess they can't route it here on Ride with GPS. But good to know that's the route. So from here to there.
Actually, you know, it's fun story. You know, as I said, I have an official record for this one. It's 9 hours and a half or something. And Stanko did it this year. I knew he was strong, so I told him to apply for the record, because it would be, he broke my record actually, but he didn't have officials. Yeah. So I think he did half an hour faster, so he was smoking. He was fast.
Yeah, very strong racer. So Nal, you definitely live in the country, and we were trying to figure out with Stanko, is it the water there? He said it's the air from the Alps. So all of you have an advantage over the rest of us. So you're definitely born in the right country. And that sounds like a cool ride. And so there's no shortage of ultra racers, mentors, coaches there for you, so it'll be very exciting to continue to watch your journey. But as Marko said, you really have to enjoy it. And I think we've gotten that a lot on the show from our other guests. course, you have to have a passion first and foremost for cycling in general. And then especially, of course, if you're doing ultra racing, you're just doing biking even more and longer. But from the best I could tell, Nal, you really do enjoy cycling. I'd love to know, like, what got you started in cycling when you were 8 years old, 8 years ago, and what has kept you motivated and interested in the sport 8 years later now?
Well, basically, it started with my father. When my father died, I basically, I was already into biking, but prior to the accident. And so it was about, when I was 8 years old, I joined the club, and, it kept me going. I liked racing, I met a lot of new friends, a lot of new people. I enjoyed racing. It was 5 years so that you meet new people. Races are pretty much every year. Some races are new. Some races. Some races. I don't know how you said it, but there are a lot of new races. Some races are canceled. And basically, what keeps me going is the passion, because I could never play a sport, like football or basketball. Um, I could never play because I like cycling so much, for one reason, because if you go on a bike, you go from point A to point B, and then, you can go from point B, you can go, back, or you can go further. But when you're playing, sports like basketball and football, I respect all the athletes, who commit to their sport and what they're doing. But, just with sports like this, it's just not, because you're always in the same place, you're always, on a football field. You are, in a basketball arena. You're in one place. I like cycling because you're constantly moving, exploring, and this is what keeps me going in this sport.
That's a great answer. And Marco, I'm sure you can relate to Nal. I mean, you have ridden.
It gives you freedom.
thousands.
That's probably what got me going. It gives you freedom. You can go. And actually, when you're ultra cyclist, it's kind of fun, because I can decide to go to visit my friend in Belgrade. It's 500 kilometers. It's not such a big deal. If I want to do it easy, I do it in 2 days. If I want to do a hard one, I can do it in a day, actually. So it's kind of fun, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but yeah, you're right. You have to have a passion, because it's just too much hard work to do it if you don't love it. There's no way I would be able to do it anybody, So usually it's kind of the other way around. People hear about RAAM and they that gets them motivated and that gets them going. But with us, at least with you and me, it was just we kind of got into cycling, and then RAAM took over.
When it comes to 6-hour races or 12-hour races, those are on the shorter end for an ultra racer, but for someone like Nal, that would be on the longer end of what he's currently doing. How many of those do you think he should do or could do in a given year if he was really interested?
One.
Yeah, I think when you start, you just it's nice nowadays that you have those options. When we started, there was just a couple of 24 hours. So I wouldn't put a number on it, but I would say, just do it a couple of times and then you prolong it. It's kind of funny how when you first start thinking about it. There was, like I said, only 24 hours, and it was mind blowing. I didn't know what to do, how to train, what to eat. Especially even for the qualification, when I did it, I did a big mistake with nutrition. So I had probably 4 or 5 stops for diarrhea because I drank. That was my mistake. After a day, I really started really fast, but after 10 hours, I got this big shake with Gainer's fuel. Probably, it's still something similar. I think 3,000 calories with milk, and I tried to drink that in half an hour, and it was just full. My stomach was too full. I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink, and my coach in the van behind was going crazy. And then when I could eat, then I started to have problems, going to the toilet too many times. So you just learn as you go. And nowadays it's a little bit easier, start with 6 hours to go into 12. And then every time you go a step further, when you do a 24-hour race, 12 hours, it seems like a piece of cake, When you do RAAM nowadays, 24 hours doesn't seem that much to me. So that's just
Amazing.
sort of progression that you make as you go. And
Marco, with the self-supported brevet type style riding.
Yeah.
Nal, does that interest you at all? Or what exactly is your own interest as it relates to the longer distances? Is it racing things like 6, 12, or 24 hours, or just doing long distances in general?
Well, racing is also one of the reasons I quitted. Road cycling. There were some issues in the club, but I'm not gonna dive into that. Basically, if we compare, long distances to racing or just riding, I would try racing. I would, because it's different. It's a big difference if you're racing against someone. You obviously have the goal to beat them. But if you're all alone, like Marco said, it's easier if you're in a group. It's always easier. If you're training, if you're racing, it's easier to do it in a group. I can tell that from racing. It's we'll leave the wind and all of those natural things out. But if I would be preferring, I would be preferring the racing probably. But later maybe I would do it solo. But like I said, I still have time. I'm still young.
And what do you think, like just thinking about it and through the years as you've thought about doing slightly longer distances, not even necessarily say a multi-day thing, but even just within one day, a 6-hour race or a 12-hour race, what do you think is your most interest, or what's the sweet spot do you think for you that you would like to be good at some point, whether now or in a few years' time?
Well, the sweet spot, or the thing that I would like to be good at in this discipline is being, having a big stamina, being, riding as hard as possible for a long period of time. It comes with a price, but this would be probably the sweet spot if I would be racing long distances, or ultra racing. The sweet spot that I would personally would like to reach would be the bigger stamina, longer rides and riding as hard as you possibly can.
Now, is there a certain time or distance that you would target as your first ultra races as you started doing them a lot?
I mean, I don't have any goals, what, time or distance. I would, for if I would like to test myself, I would test it, let's go. I would do it as simple as I can. Let's go for, I don't know. We have a local, about 20 kilometers for here. I don't know how far is it, but it's a Vršić Pass. Marko knows it very well. If I would go if I would like to test myself, I would go. Okay, let's do it. How many times can I in one day, get to the top of Vršić and down? If I would do it, I have been on Vršić myself, 10 times plus, and if that would be my, a goal to push, or to test myself, am I really prepared? Am I really good at, that would be my kind of way of, proving myself. So I could,
Yeah, that's
so
really cool. I'll pull up an image here. I just Googled. It's a Vršić Pass, right? This one.
Yes.
So how are you familiar with the Everesting challenge that people are crazy about these days, especially this year, where you ride 29,000 feet in a single ride?
Yes. It's, I have noticed some posts and some informations about this. It's basically, you have vertical feet. You're basically climbing and descending all the time, so you reach, the height of the Everest. I haven't really dived into that thing, but I've heard of it, and it's a cool thing to do. It's definitely a thing to try, but I'm more into mountain biking right now, and
I would say, when you get the urge back for road cycling, it's really important to be a good time trialist. So try, now that you're still young, still a kid, if you want to do something, if you improve in time trialing, the faster you are, the less time it takes for you to cover the race. So that's probably one of the things. Of course, climbing as well, but time trialing is just something that
A different
brings
story.
you.
Looking at some of the photos you had sent before, it looks like you also
Yes.
do some mountain climbing.
Yes, well, I'm a big, me and my family, we, pretty much every month we go into the mountains. And, for myself, I like climbing. I got inspired, one time, I was, I was home alone, 2015 when the movie Everest came out. They didn't tell me, we were going to the cinema. They took me there. I watched the movie. I was through the roof, and basically it all started from there. The guy on the picture that was with me is actually a father is actually a father of one of my, back from the days. He's the kid. The kid is still racing today. He's also enduro, but he also does cross country. I think he's about 4 years younger than me, but his father is an alpinist. A guide. So I called them, I contacted them, I asked him if he could take me, to the Triglavski Narodni Park. Triglav is obviously the highest mountain in Slovenia. He took me to the northern Triglav wall, the German route, we call it in English. So we climb it, but it's different because if you know someone, it creates, if you know someone, you're responsible for that person if you're climbing. So usually if I would go climbing, I would go with the guy that I don't know, because it's just the different energy between you and the person who's taking you up there, who takes the responsibility, because if anything happens, he's gonna think about it, it's gonna haunt him for years. So that's why, it was this one time just to see how it feels and how it looks. And the next year, I was 16, 2nd of November, that's like 8 days ago. And the next year, I will be attending the Alpine school. And I'm a big I would like to come an alpinist, not to focus just on the bike, but have things beside it you can do.
That's excellent. So a lot of cross training, but also a lot of outdoor adventures. So it seems like you're very much an adventurer. And just looking at this photo, I mean, you are really high up there. I'm not sure that I have the guts to do this even one time. Marco, how about you? Do you see yourself on the side of a mountain like this?
I mean, I did a lot of hiking when I was, with my parents, when I was Nal's age now. So I was 2 times on Triglav, both times before I was 15. And after that, so for the last 35 years, I wasn't on Triglav anymore. But yeah, we still did a lot of hiking in the winters. It's a good base training. So mountaineering is a little bit, for me, it's, I don't think I have nerves for it. Yeah, but it looks nice, I'm sure, and it's all good cross training.
Yeah, it's very cool, Nal. Very exhilarating, I can imagine. And so, I mean, if you're able to climb on the edge of a mountain like this, I mean, that's a long way down to the bottom, and you have the guts for that. I would imagine then for ultra cycling, as you think about doing in the future very long distances, perhaps that doesn't scare you as much as it might for somebody that doesn't climb mountains like that? Or what are your thoughts when you think of ultra cycling, say a 24-hour race or the Race Across America? I mean, are you afraid of that? Does that scare you in any way when you just think about it?
I mean, there is a big difference between climbing and cycling. Obviously it is, but going into the mountains, it's just not the same feeling. I would not be afraid. I'm not afraid going on a bike and challenging myself, but still, it's a different feeling when you're in the mountain.
But would you say that perhaps the fearlessness that you have will help you in your bicycling, for example, even just descending, whether it's mountain biking or road racing, or even just facing a big challenge? Perhaps it's not a literal mountain, but a figurative one in training. in setting a big audacious goal, like doing a 12-hour race and competing in and trying to get first place, or doing something like the Race Across America? Do you think that
Or
fearlessness is something that is really just something inherent in you that will help you in the rest of your career?
well, I'm that type of a guy. If I set myself to doing something, I commit to it. I wouldn't quit halfway there. I try to do it. If you're going to do it 100%. Don't quit. If you fail, you fail. You take a rest. You try another time.
Mm.
But yes, definitely. If I would try, I would prepare. But as I mentioned many times, I still have. I'm young. I have a lot of years. A lot of experience to overcome. A lot of goals. So personally. If I'm gonna put myself to it, I'm gonna work hard. But
Mm.
obviously, that's a long way, and I still have a lot of time. So currently, I will focus myself on mountain biking. We'll think about other things later.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. It sounds like a very mature perspective and very much in line with what Marko has been giving as his tips for you. So it seems like you're well on your way to becoming another legend in the sport. I mean, just by the fact that you live in Slovenia, I think something will happen. The water that you all drink there, and it's the same that Marko and your father has drunk as well. It's pretty incredible that you even, are interested in the sport at such a young age, whereas the average, say, non-competitive ultra racer only gets aware of it or interested or involved with it much later in their life. So I could just imagine, with the knowledge that you have, the mentors, the coaches that you have, someone like Marko nearby you, that you'll
Well,
definitely have a bright future.
yes, of course. I mean, as I've mentioned before, I like to meet new people. Make friends. Listen to their experiences, what they've been through. How it's like, and
Mm.
of course, guys like Marko and Matias and all his team. I've raced. Road racing. There's a lot of guys. Who have been with my father. Rajko Pitek, Marko knows him very well. His son was racing with me. We were good friends. Still
Mm.
are, and new people, new experiences. That's basically how it goes from when you
Yeah.
meet new people. It's just from there on.
Yeah, that's so cool. And perhaps as a last kind of topic, Marco, that you could touch on as it relates to ultra cycling, tell us about meeting new people and the community and the family that ultra cycling is, and what's that meant for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I think that's the best sport that you can pick, for traveling places, meeting new people, especially. And that's a big difference. Probably Nell already mentioned a little bit. The road racing is kind of, racing is, dog eat dog. You just have to beat somebody to win. Ultra cycling is different because you kind of race with yourself. You want to do your best, and of course it helps if there's other fast guys. You go push a little bit harder, and always, even in RAAM, it helps to have competition. But it's different, and just the feeling is different. Yourself. The crews help each other. It's such a positive vibe all over. Even in the biggest races such as RAAM. So it's a one of a kind sport. I would think. As we said, you can go whenever you want, wherever you want. Actually, when you're well prepared, and in racing, it's just super nice. It's kind of family feeling. Even the guys. Nowadays, it's nice that almost everybody speaks English, and I'm impressed how well and now speaks it. That's great.
Yeah, teamwork makes the dream work. And so, of course,
Yeah.
Marco, we thank you so much, obviously, for being part of the Ultra family and taking the time out of what I'm sure is very busy, not just training schedule for yourself, because you're a very elite athlete, even till this day, and also a coach. So you're helping many others as well. So we appreciate that. But that's
Training wise, this is the best time of the year to have such such meetings, because it's not
It's
not
the
a
end
big
of
deal.
the
It's not big
season.
quantity.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Kind of the end of the season. So it's unfortunately we have this Corona thing that keeps us. But otherwise, autumn is the best by a long way the best time of the year to be biking, riding, cycling around, because the colors are awesome. The temperature is not that cold yet, but unfortunately, we're kind of in a semi-lockdown, so we cannot do much. We cannot do long rides, and there's no pressure. There's no racing anymore, so you can just enjoy yourself. This is by far the best part of the year, for outdoor riding.
I could just imagine, especially in all the trails that you're riding now. I'm sure it's very beautiful there, and I hope I can make it out there someday and ride in the beautiful country of Slovenia, and perhaps I'll get a few extra watts stronger just by being there and training there for a little bit.
Let's make this let's invite everybody in Slovenia. Is really such for riding, for the road cycling, mountain biking for sure. And it's pretty small, but you get to see you have a seaside. From where I live, this central Slovenia, Ljubljana, there's an hour drive to the seaside and less than an hour, half an hour to the Alps. So an hour on the other side, where it's the flats like Kansas of Slovenia with the big fields. So it's really, even with a bike, you can do everything in a day.
Pretty much everywhere you go with your bike in Slovenia, you experience, where everywhere you go, there's beautiful countryside around you. So you can't miss coming to Slovenia. It's true.
Yeah, I'm sold. I'll see you guys there soon. And I guess also everywhere you turn in Slovenia, you bump into an ultra cycling legend there.
Yeah.
And well, Nal, I have a question for you. Would you ever be interested in coming to the US and perhaps even crewing for an ultra race, whether it's the Race Across America or even something else? Is that something that's interested you?
Well, yes, actually, before I answer the question, this race around Slovenia, this is basically, what it's also, of course, my father inspires me, but this is also what inspired me. So that would be probably the first ultra race I would go to, because it's close to me. But yes, I definitely, I wouldn't have a problem, working for someone, helping them success to their goal. As Marko said, 33%, is the team. Of course, you rely on the team because they're basically, when you're racing, they represent a big part of, without them, it's almost impossible to finish the race. Of course, you can finish it yourself, but they're important. They help you, and of course, I would love to come to the United States. Crew for somebody. I know it's not easy. I still have time, as I said it. 100 times. But currently I'm more focusing. I still have school to do. And maybe that's a thing I'll do, in a few years.
Yeah, definitely. And Marko, just briefly, do you think at some point for Nal, is his progression into ultra cycling through the years, it would be a good idea for him to crew for something like RAAM?
I want to say two things now regarding what Nal said. Yeah, of course, crewing is one of the best ways to get to know how RAAM works. So I think that's a great option. If you can, you learn everything, and you see in firsthand what it takes. I had a lot of guys who did that before they actually did it themselves, and some guys who did crew and decided that it's just too extreme for them. So it just opens your eyes.
And Nal, we will be cheering you on and following your journey very closely. So thanks for being able to chat with us, and let's stay in touch. And Marko, thank you for sharing all of your years of wisdom and experience. And I'm glad to hear and know that Nal is in good company there in Slovenia with people like you there. And so thank you again both for your time.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting us. Of course. Ja, itak, mare, čim prej, no. To se že dolgo nismo.
And so for everyone watching at home, I hope you enjoyed this episode and follow closely for Jure Robič's son. He's already doing big things and grand adventures, and I'm sure there'll be much more to come in the years ahead. So enjoy the competition you have and the places you're achieving now, because pretty soon we'll be having a very strong ultra cyclist standing on the podium, and we'll have a lot more competition coming from Slovenia. Until next time, everyone, keep spinning ultra.